hope when John Laurinaitis was done, he just kind of went people power when he was done. Like, she's sitting there, he just hands her a towel or whatever. And he's just like, oh yeah, here you go. People power, And I mean,
what I'm hoping for, we've seen, I don't know about you, I've seen the Hogan sex tape.
Yes.
If a tape comes out of Vince and Laurinaitis together,
yes,
it'll make my day.
Yeah. Like that. That's the whole thing. I mean, here's the like normally, what happens when stuff like this goes south is that normally more allegations come out. So I don't know if putting Stephanie in charge is just a play for that, but Vince is really kind of screwed.
As we talked about,
everybody else.
The timing of this is kind of fishy.
Yeah, the time
Stephanie takes a leave, Triple H is gone, then this all.
Well, it's funny because I made the joke earlier that I was like, well, let's see. AEW has an interim heavyweight champion that maybe WWE was like, I got it. Let's have an interim president of the company. Let's have an interim owner. Like, that would never happen. But I had flashbacks of when Stone Cold took over Titan Tower.
That's right.
And he was in the headquarters and, all that shit. So, I don't know. Like, man, it's just, we'll see. We will definitely see what happens.
Well, here's the thing, Vince beat the federal government in the steroid trial.
Yeah.
So I got faith. I got faith in Vince. He's going to pull. Although, let's be honest, that was also 30 years ago. He was much younger and more coherent.
Oh, yeah, without question.
And hey, if nothing else, the product can't get much worse.
Oh, yeah.
So whoever's in charge now, whether it's Stephanie, Triple H, we'll see what happens. But it can't get much worse.
Yeah. And I mean, that's the thing. Like, I don't really, know how that's going to work. But honestly, I look at it like this. So Stephanie is much better to look at than Vince. I've always personally liked Stephanie myself, more so when she got the tits done. Yeah. But, that's just the whole thing of apparently, like from what I'm seeing online is that it's having more of a little bit of a positive reaction from the fan base with Stephanie in charge than anything else. So that's actually kind of a good thing in the long run. So but
we know Nick Khan is waiting in the wings. We'll see what happens. But as we were talking earlier, I said the person in wrestling is probably the most happy about all this right now is Jeff Hardy. Off of him. Yeah. Nobody's talking about Jeff. Nobody's talking about Jeff Hardy.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like did you see AEW their whole thing of due to his brain scan, we weren't going to have him in the match to begin with. It's like bitches. Yes, you were.
Like, they were going to put the belts on him. They were going to put the belts on him.
Like, don't sit there and recant that and go back on that now.
There's been something like I don't know how much you've watched it with the Hardys since they came back. There's been something up with Jeff since he came back.
Oh yeah, like, without question. Every
swanton he's done,
without question at all. Without question at all. I mean, that's the thing.
Cornette talked about it.
He did the swanton on the steps or whatever and all that shit. And it's like, what the fuck? What is he thinking? Like, that's just completely, absolutely insane.
And the best part is when he got pulled over, it was like 9:30 in the morning.
Blows me away. Yeah.
It was like 9:30 in the morning.
Oh, without question.
He was still going from the night before.
Yeah. And real quick, what I'm going to do is we went out this past week. Actually, we were talking about a little bit is that fully fermented. We're going to have fully fermented Redux, which is going to be our vintage content for Happy Hour TV. But fully fermented is going to turn into kind of like a local spotlight / events thing. And you can see right here from my hat, shout out the Vagabond Sandwich Company. Ben and all the guys over there went over their great food right in downtown Bel Air, Maryland. If you're here in Maryland or if you visit Maryland, go check out Vagabond Sandwich Company. They're going to be our first feature next month. On fully fermented. Me and Matt went out, we talked to Ben, recorded some video, and what I told Ben is what I'm going to do real quick is that we were going to play an ad for him on each episode. So that's what I'm going to run right now is I'm going to go ahead and run the Vagabond Sandwich Company commercial. So shout out to Vagabond and here you go.
In a world full of hunger and thirst, one restaurant will attempt to satisfy these cravings forever. Meet our hero, the cheeseburger, and his salty partner, crab dip tater tots. Together, with local craft beer, they take the fight to hunger. With a special appearance by Cupcake Milkshake, they... Vagabond Sandwich Company. Better making food than making commercials.
Right, and there you have it.
Now I'm hungry. I want some crab. We got crab cake tater tots and a cupcake milkshake.
Well, when I went, I got something called the Three Pigs, and it was this big ass sandwich that had turkey, bacon, and what the hell else was on it? I forgot what it was, but it was like fucking this big, dude. It was gigantic, and it was awesome. And I forgot. And God, Ben probably hates us for this, but I forgot when we were there, they had milkshakes. And what you can do with the milkshakes is you can drop any cupcake you want in the milkshake. And I meant to get one of those, and I didn't. And so pretty much what it is, and hopefully at Vagabond, I'm thinking of maybe doing another round table. Hopefully in the future we can do another roundtable at Vagabond.
Definitely have to do another roundtable.
So
the last one was tremendous.
That'll be fun to do with Bob and all those guys. And I ran into Derek Frazier. So I ran into Derek Frazier. He works at the Weiss 5 minutes up the road from where I live, and he said he would be a part of it. So hopefully we can get Stevie Riggs and Derek Frazier. That would be
me and Stevie.
Amazing.
Be like Christian Academy reunion.
But no, we went up there. It was amazing. It was great. The food's amazing. And we were actually talking to Ben because they have a lot of sexually driven commercials, and one of them that the Mastercake commercial, it sounds like masturbate. And we told him, you'll see it in the interview, that we asked him, we're like, if you could describe a sandwich, we're like, we know everybody always asks you what your favorite thing is, but we're going to put it in terms of what do you believe is sex in your mouth. So we were kind of talking a little bit. He said he wanted to do a hot dog, and he said he might call it the SIM, the sex in your mouth or whatever. And I was like, oh, that'd be great. Let us know 100%. But shout out to Vagabond Sandwich Company.
This, though, we did our 100th episode last year at Jimmy Seafood.
Yes,
I'm a big fan of the fact that there's now a Jimmy Seafood at Camden Yards.
Oh,
and those crab cake egg rolls are fucking off the chain.
Oh yeah, Shout out to Jimmy's as well.
I was just there 2 weeks ago too.
And you're going to see Vagabond's commercial every week right here on the Happy Hour podcast. What I'm going to actually try to do is, since we have so many of our guests going, hey, such and such, and you're watching or listening to the Happy Hour podcast, I'm going to try to do like a little commercial thread. I'm trying to get the video right now from Bubba for his security guard company, and we can do it with them saying, just like how we do it in our audio episodes for those of you who are listening, at home, that, it does that, but it's a video version of it. And maybe we'll start filming some commercials for some of the people that, we do fully fermented with and all that stuff. Or your boy's broke, and we'll always be more than willing to, if someone wants to pay to have your stuff advertised right here on the Happy Hour podcast. We have episodes with Karen Fisher. Of course, you missed Karen Fisher part 2 last week. It was awesome, dude. It was so good, so much better than the original. Felipe the Night Stalker came back. He returned. He was there and he's a sport. We fucked with that guy the entire episode. We messed with that guy so bad.
Well, the last time I was on was the Happy Hour Rumble, and I do have to mention I was in the last. I was in the final 3. I was in the final 3.
Yeah, and what I'm going to do real quick is I'm going to get into an article that we could not get into last week, and one is a PG County woman that was charged in 2 separate firebombings, but I like to call her.
Sounds like my kind of girl.
Yeah, I feel like she's X-Men, right? She kind of looks like if you ordered Mystique off Wish.
Is she hot?
It's like the Black Mystique. So Socrates, you can come around if you want, and what I'll do is I'll share screen this as well. Then that way everybody at home can kind of see what she looks like. So there we go. So that's her right there. I call her the Black Mystique. So and that's the thing. And so here it is right here. So that's what she looks like. So it says that, of course, this happened right here in Baltimore. Go figure. A Prince George's County woman was arrested on multiple charges of arson. According to Maryland State Fire Marshal, 20-year-old Latrice Junee Williams, she has they put her name out like she killed the president. You ever notice that? You murdered a president, you all 3 names are out. So played a role in 2 bombings in Charles and St. Mary's County. That's down at the bottom of Maryland. St. Mary's County was one of the first counties in the state. And it says, according to fire officials, on October 14th, they were called to the 3800 block of Shiner Court after the owner discovered the remains of a Molotov cocktail in his front yard. This chick needs to go to the Ukraine and teach these people, Ukraine, that war's still going on. They were playing on the radios and the TVs, how to make Molotov cocktails. So that could be they could be like, hey, look, we'll let you out in good faith. Just go over there and show the Ukrainians how to make Molotov cocktails to fuck the Russians. And I mean, that's the whole thing. And it said,
you know, if you were dating her, you wouldn't want to break up with her.
Wait, so hold on.
It's one thing, you know, a girl goes on Facebook or something and says you got a small dick. This chick comes to your house and throws a Molotov cocktail through your window.
Yeah. So hold on. So I'm very confused. So the next article and the next sentence, let me see if you picked this up like I did. It said, according to Merriam-Webster, a Molotov cocktail is a bomb made of. Okay, so now that I read more into the sentence, all I saw was according to Merriam-Webster, like it was a person. I'm like, isn't that a fucking dictionary? But you would imagine that it would say according to the Merriam-Webster dictionary. But this said according to Merriam-Webster, like they're talking about a person. Like Merriam-Webster didn't say it themselves. The dictionary fucking said.
About Merriam-Webster, he's an actual Molotov cocktail.
Yeah, it says a Molotov cocktail is a crude bomb made of a bottle filled with flammable liquid that's usually fitted with a wick that is ignited before the bottle is hurled. It's not a wick, it's a shirt. It's a piece of fabric. There's no wick in a Molotov cocktail. It's a shirt or a rag. And it says fire officials said the Molotov cocktail in this incident did not function properly and fails to cause significant structural damage. Well, I think what it is since she's Mystique, maybe like mid-throw, like she turned into like Professor X or something like that, and it just fucked, like the bottle just hit the wall and it just went fucking ape shit or something like that. Like, you know, and then it says following the incident, investigators obtained a video showing the person throwing a firebomb at a house just before 11 p.m. the previous night. Now, I wonder if she was all blue when that was happening. Like, you know how she's blue and naked all the time, but like no one pays mind. Like,
she was black and blue.
Just after 11 p.m. on October 15th, Deputy State Fire Marshals responded to the 25-100 block of Gallant Man Drive in Hollywood. Gallant Man, he's a very that it's Pride Month, and we have ourselves a Gallant Man Street. Like after a St. Mary's County Sheriff's Office responded to a person who had Molotov cocktails thrown at a house. The owner told investigators that he was inside the home when he heard a noise and later found the devices just feet from his door. It's still burning. So this isn't like a case like when I read firebombings, like this is like these are failed like firebombings. This is like clickbait if I've ever seen clickbait in my life. Like this is completely like, you know, oh well, she tried this, but it didn't work. And it says Williams was arrested without incident yesterday morning and was held without bond at the Charles County Detention Center. Well, I would hope the fuck so. It said, I'm very thankful for our investigators' vigilance, tenacity, and thoughtfulness. State Fire Marshal Brian. Why is he worried about it? She failed. Nothing happened.
Why did she throw them all the cocktails?
I have no idea. I guess she just wanted to. So, and it says Williams was charged with first-degree arson and manufacturing and possession of a destructive device. So yeah, so that's our first Drunken Ramblings article. And one thing that's funny is this week, you know, we were talking about it. This is actually beer-wise kind of like our first dry episode. Like, and you know, I was panicking when I came to get you because I was so behind with everything. Like literally, like as soon as we went live, I came in the house, hooked everything up, boom, went live. So I didn't even have a chance to go out and pick a beer. So, you know, this is like the sober hour podcast right now. Yeah, but no, so you know, shout out to 10 High. I'm going to be drinking some of the 10 High later. I'm just going to drink some of it out of the bottle.
Maybe I'll have a relapse.
Maybe I'll have a relapse or something like that. But no, see, here's the thing. Like last week we had Chai May, and the Chai May was like $24. Like here, actually, I still have the thing right here. Like that's what it was, and it's made by like fucking monks in like 1863 or whatever. We're like, this is just chunks of monks.
It's kind of like a New Orleans Saints logo.
Yeah, but it's definitely not a New Orleans Saint logo. Like, you know, that's just the whole thing.
That is a New Orleans Saint logo. I do a picture of Phil Anselmo. He's got a tattoo of it. Yeah. Isn't it mandatory that when I'm on, we have to do like the High Priest poetry minute or whatever?
Yeah, go ahead, man. Get right into your poetry. Yeah. I mean, we're gonna have a writer/author on soon or whatever. So
we're gonna have a writer on, so we gotta do it. And you know what? I didn't even prepare one, so I gotta go through
right off the top of your head.
Yeah. You know? Oh god. Well, we could do let's see. Do an older one. Go back to 2009. All right. Do it 2009. How's that? And it's called.
I can't believe you remember these off the top of your head. Like that just blows me away.
Well, having this kind of memory is like a blessing and a curse. There's a lot of things I wish I could forget from my life, because you know. But anyway, this one's called The Well.
The Well. Okay, this sounds like I believe somebody may die, or it's about somebody who's about to die, or somebody you may have murdered in this story.
You have to go right to that. It's always.
I mean, that's the thing. Like,
it's always that.
I mean, you've never been on the first 48 because they didn't solve it in the first 48. Like
they haven't solved it in the first 13 years. All right. All right. So let's go to the well. The darkness is thick as I reach for the rope. The well has run dry of all hope. So I'll drink 6 more and drown out my sorrows. The well has run dry of all tomorrows. So lay my body way down in the hills. The well has run dry and there'll be no more refills.
Oh, I mean, there you go. And also Friday Night SmackDown sent me a message pretty much saying that Mr. McMahon is going to be
He's gonna lead off the show, right?
I mean, that's the thing, but anything that can draw in ratings.
Yeah,
like
they'll use anything.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, without question. So I'm going to go ahead and take a shot of our featured shot 10 high. I'm going to go ahead and do it now because hopefully by the time I venture back to Dundalk to drop you off, this will already be out of my system because this is 40% alcohol by volume. It's 80 proof.
That's about usual.
So 80 proof. Yeah.
You can finish this. You can kill this bottle.
I am
That's
not.
like 3 shots.
Yeah, there's no way.
If this was 2008, you'd kill that bottle.
Yeah, if it was 2008, I'd finish this bottle. If I finish this bottle now, I'm ending up like Mike Blair. That's what's happening.
You might have a couple of lost weekends like John Lennon.
If I finish this bottle, I will be in cardiac care by the end of this episode. Like I am not the man that I used to be, and I will admittedly say that I am not the man that I used to be. But no, shout out to 10 High. Unfortunately, it really breaks my heart that we don't have a new featured beer this week, but I was busy running around, so we'll have something next week. Hopefully Matt will be back next week. He can help me drink some of that beer. That son of a bitch.
Since we don't have a featured beer, I'm gonna just do a shout out and give a free plug to a beer then. And it's gonna be the beer that I used for the infamous chair reveal bottles in the steel chair death match. Go drink some Sing Tao.
Sing Tao. Sing Tao sounds like an angry Asian man.
It's from China. The bottles are like this thick, which wasn't the smartest.
We've had a couple of beers.
I know I've told that story.
Yeah.
I had the bottle. I had the chair, right?
Yeah.
The six bottles were taped on there. Blood gave me a back body. Keep in mind I weighed 230.
What could possibly go wrong with this?
Well, keep in mind I weighed 230 at the time. Blood gave me a back body and not one of them broke.
Oh God.
It was brutal.
But no, and our guests should be coming through pretty soon. But one thing I'm going to get into real quick is, like me, like I always sit there and I think back to like jobs that I've worked at before in the past. And I had a job, and of course, because I worked there for numerous years. I worked at AMF Bowling Centers, and that was when I was super young. Yeah. Like worked at AMF Bowling Centers.
I still bowl there every week. Every week.
Yeah. What's funny is that job we joked around. We always deemed that sexual harassment didn't exist. Like we were so open with everybody, and like. If people ever sit there and think, I don't know if anybody's ever been in the back because I was a mechanic there. Right. So I was back in the pin setter area. There's a lot of noise back there. Yes, things happen back there. I have been a part of things. I have seen things. Like things happen back there because it's so loud that you don't know
the screams.
What's going on. Yes. And we had
to cut you off. Do you remember on the party bus for your birthday? We randomly stopped there. I don't know why. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
We randomly stopped there, and we're just like 2 chicks got on the bus, and then I was like, why are we here?
Yeah. Well, somebody from my work actually got on the bus. And then we were just kind of like, oh, hey. And then like we dropped everybody off in a random spot. And actually Kim is right here. We're going to go ahead and admit her in. And then I'll keep on talking a little bit about that because I'm sure, she'll be a little bit interested in hearing some of that.
Speaking of AMF, how about this?
Hello, how are you?
Check this out. I got my AMF summer pass, right?
Summer pass.
This was $58.
Okay.
And it's good until the end of August. I've already spent...
Is that from the AMF that randomly closed and dipped out on the leagues?
No, the one in Dundalk.
Hello,
how are you?
Good. How are you?
Doing well, thank you.
And of course, welcome our guest, Kim Greer, author, and we're just kind of kicking it a little bit. Of course, I'm Ray. My co-host tonight, Socrates. He's very sensitive to the light, so he's on the other side of the computer because the screen bothers his eyes. But what I'm doing right now is, have you ever like sat there at any point in your life, you sat there and you look back at a job and you're like, man, that was such a fun job. And that's kind of what we were talking a little bit about before you came on. Like, I worked at a bowling alley and it was just insane. Some of the things that we did. Like, I remember one night me and one of the mechanics, like I took the mechanic and we taped him to a chair. Like, we taped his arms to a chair and we taped his mouth closed, and there was a league on the floor, and he got up with the chair attached to him and he ran throughout the whole entire center with leagues on the floor screaming like he was a kidnap victim. So just the horror, like all the league bowlers.
That's like we threw Maddie in the trunk of the car.
Yeah.
Jumped out the stoplight and the girl next to us was like, what the fuck?
Yeah. And so we had stuff like that happen. Is there any job that you had in your life where you look back and you're like, man, like we pretty much got away with whatever we wanted to do and we never got into trouble?
Sure. I worked at the concession stand at a skating rink near my house. I was 16 years old. It was the best job. It was very, very cool. The part I liked the best was on Sundays when they let the older folks come in and play bingo. They were out on the skating floor, and those of us who worked the concession stand would get to put on our skates kind of like 1950 style and skate out their food to them. Very cool. Very nice. Until I dropped a tray. Then it wasn't so cool.
Was it like one of those things you drop the tray and it hits the ground and like everything just goes silent? Like it just goes, and everybody's like, oh.
Of course, and it happens in slow motion too, right? So it's like, I'm like, oh no. And it just So it was a whole thing.
There was a time, same place. And I was saying before you came on, I was a mechanic there. So I worked in the area. I worked on all the pin setter machines. And I don't know how familiar you are with it. It's a big thing here in Baltimore, but duck pin bowling. Have you ever heard of duck pin bowling?
Sure. Yes.
Yeah, that's huge here in Baltimore. So what we did is we took a duck pin, and it was an old pin that we were discarding, and we drilled a hole in the top of it, and we poured lacquer thinner into it, and we shoved a rag in it, and we're like, let's blow this thing up in the parking lot. And so we take it out of the parking lot, we put it down, we light the lighter, and we're just sitting there and we're thinking about it. And we're like, and those things are solid plastic, like solid plastic. We're like, if this thing blows up, there's going to be scrapnel fragments everywhere. And then my coworker was like, I don't know, man, I don't think this is a good idea. I'm like, man, you've talked about this for like an hour. You light that damn pin right now. So he ended up taking it home, and he lived in a big wooded area, and he lit that thing, and he said that thing exploded, and there were pieces just went everywhere. He's like, bro, it was a good idea. We did not do that. So Kim, of course, welcome to the show. Killed by bowling pin scratnel. Yeah. Of course, our show, we get kind of wild at times. It's fun. Of course, you got a couple books out. Tell us about, your books. Like, I mean, that's the thing. Like, you're an author, tell us everything about, your books.
Sure. So I have one out now. I released it back in September. It's called Masked Intent, a modern day morality play. And that's the whole
graphic actually for you was
right. Yeah. Right. Exactly. And so the premise of the book is that truth is very over humankind. She's mad because people don't recognize what she looks like anymore. And so she uses the convention of a love story, the most basic interaction between people, right? To talk about the fact that even in our most intimate relationships, we still don't want to be ourselves, that we are all victims of self-deception. And so the book ends in a cliffhanger. As I said, it's mostly a love story, but it's a lesson as well. And it will continue with Intents and Purposes, which will release later this year. Awesome. In between, I am working on a collection of short stories that kind of give the characters origin stories and fill in a few more blanks for readers. And that is called Intermezzo, and it will be out at the end of next month.
Cool. And now with that, like, does that follow the whole, because I feel like, talking about the book, when you're talking about the book, is it kind of like touches on everything that's going on now. Like, everything's on the rise, inflation, like, we're all kind of deceptive to ourselves. Like, no one even, like, you don't even have the common courtesy for driver courtesy anymore. Like, it's just, it's madness. Like, it's like, everybody's out for themselves. And, me and him were talking because I was rushing to get here. Like, I was way behind on everything, and I had to pick him up. And I'm like, man, everybody's like, gas is super high, but everybody's driving like they have nowhere to be. And, just Maryland in general, I'm not sure how familiar you are with Maryland driving, but it is one of the worst in the country because we have so many here. behavior. And it's so bad. But yeah, I mean, that's cool that, you're able to write a book that kind of, right now of everything that's going on. And, it's also mapped in a love story
well,
too.
Those are kind of the best stories. It's a metaphor, it's a story, but it's also a metaphor for life itself.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely, 100%. And it was completely influenced by the fact that we look to influence and the masks that we wear in order to navigate day-to-day life. Look at social media and look at the way we worship celebrities. All of that is kind of baked into the story too. And as I said, Truth is very angry that influence has kind of taken her place. Yeah. But because every story needs a good twist, I'm beginning now to write Influence's response to Truth. So she'll be introduced in the next book and in the final book of the series as well.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And I was talking the other day with one of my coworkers. And I'm like, it's weird because I was born in the 80s, born in the 80s, 90s, 2000s. And I feel like those eras, you kind of, at the best of everything, kind of you ended up getting the internet. You had all these cool TV shows, all these cool movies, everything that today's generation is going back to, very nostalgic stuff that people are now going back to and remaking popular. Pro wrestling, which is, is my background. That's what I did for 20 years. You had best eras of wrestling, just all kinds of stuff that came out. And then it's like, you also grow, me growing up, I was able to see, you had one parent that worked that had like 3 kids. And they owned a house, and you could still go on vacations and do all that. Meanwhile, me and my wife, with the money that we have, we're barely making it, and we make money. And we're just, I was telling someone, I feel like our generation is very depressed, because of stuff like that. Like, we grew up seeing all that. Now we're just kind of like, what happened? Like, and I don't know, it's crazy. And when you said, with the masks and all that, like and it made me also think is that when I did pro wrestling for 20 years, is that it was actually kind of a relief a lot of times that when I went out to perform, I was able to just kind of leave my life behind. And a lot of people they don't understand, it's the whole thing of you're going out to perform in front of a live crowd. It's probably the same thing, when you get in the zone for writing or, anybody who does music, is that you get in that zone where you kind of become a different character, a different person, and you can leave whatever issues you have behind for that short period of time and just be somebody else with no worries. And no
like wearing a mask.
Yeah,
Right, exactly, like wearing a mask. Think about when you go to a masquerade ball, a masked party. We wear our masks so we can try to step into some different persona. And that's 100% what the book is talking about, that even when we look in the mirror, are we truly who we think we're representing? Yeah. Are you being 100% authentic? And I don't think that our society today allows us to be authentic. We have to put on some mask. We have to put on some other self in order to navigate through the world. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. It's a shame that's just that's our values. That's where we are right now.
Yeah. Now look at it like this. Like, let's say if somehow, some way in the world, you could actually somehow visualize people wearing a mask. Like you could just see the mask they're hiding their personality with. If you were to look and see like someone wearing a mask, what would the mask consistently be? Like, I feel like I would see like someone with like an alligator face. Like that's what I would always like. Everybody would have alligator faces. Like if you could actually see like,
is this like a fetish of yours?
What? No, it is not. But I'm just saying, like, if you could,
why an alligator though?
Well, no, like I mean, I feel like a lot of people like if I had one thing that I saw people that were, I feel like it would be an alligator face. Like some people would be like, oh, well, everybody looks like cats to me. I don't know. Like if you thought that you could see like if people actually had the mask, like that invisible mask that they cover themselves up with, if that were to be visible, what do you think it would look like, to you?
I don't know that I see alligator masks necessarily, but I think it's we put on masks to make ourselves look better. There, people talking about the things we have, the accomplishments you may or may not have achieved. We're trying to make ourselves look fabulous. There's a passage in the book where Truth is talking about the fact that influence has made it look fabulous it's no longer good to be fabulous. You just have to look the part. I think is the phrase. And it's absolutely right. You know, we've got, I'm not Kardashian slamming here, but you've got that whole influence and raised standard of beauty. And so, you know, even down to the way we wear our makeup or the hairstyle you wear. I think masks are more represented in that way. Are you a hipster? Are you, you know, whatever ism you are? Are you representing the thing that you think is cool? And that's the poison. That's absolute poison, because we don't feel we in our naked state are good enough anymore.
Yeah. And that's the thing. And I feel like that also affects like a lot of kids in school too, because it's like, you're trying to be something that you're not. You know, me, I was fortunate enough that I clicked with every, you know, group around. You know, I got along with everybody, and I'm still kind of like that today. But I feel a lot of it is that people have that sense of security, that sense of insecurity that's out there. And like me, I'll never understand, because, you know, I'm not a woman, you know, but it's the whole thing of my wife, like when she does her makeup and all that, like I'll be sitting there and I'll be like, oh, come on, God, let's go, you know, and she'll be doing her makeup for like an hour, 2 hours, something like that. And I just, you know, it's the kind of thing that's the one thing I'll never understand. But, you know, at the end of the day, I kind of also understand as well, like, but I'm just impatient. I'm like, let's just go.
Sure.
But
and it's easier for you to slip into whatever persona that you need to go out into the world than it is for a woman to, because look, women are judged on how beautiful, or, you know, how long your hair, how great your haircut, or, you know, how well your nails are done, or whatever these superficial standards of beauty are, right, wrong, otherwise. And that's not a new thing. I think it's just become more prevalent as, you know, we look at, you know, women transforming their looks on TikTok or on YouTube. And, you know, they go from looking like they just got out of bed to looking like super runway models. And it's pretty astonishing. And I don't know that any woman I know is immune to that. So yes, I understand your pain, and gentlemen, we're sorry about that, but those are just the masks we have to wear in order to get by in this world.
And it's actually like it's weird, you know, to think about that, you know, and I sit there and I think, I'm like, you know, could I put myself in her shoes one day? Like, I want to be able to do it. Like, I'm too much work. Yeah. I'm too much of a get up and, you know, go type guy. And of course, you know, when you write, like, is there anything that, you know, you do to get yourself in the zone of writing? Like, I know, you know, when I would wrestle, before I would walk out through the curtain, I would kind of like pace a little bit back and forth, you know, kind of go like this, like get my mind into the set of, you know, I'm leaving Ray Chase and I'm becoming Chase Rawlings. Like, you know, that's the whole thing. And then when my music hits, I'm ready to boom out, and there I go. So when you write, is there anything that you do to kind of, you know, get yourself in that mentality of, hey, you know, let's go. It's time to write.
For everything I write, I build a playlist on my Spotify website, and that's the music I listen to, because those are the themes I'm usually trying to write to. The songs represent a character's feelings or a character's anger or something. And so I'll listen to whatever that song is that's going to sail me through that next scene that I'm writing. And, you know, the thing about writing also is that you get the best ideas when you're not in a position to be writing. Like if I'm taking my child to school or something, I'm like, that's a great idea. And by the time I've dropped him off, I've forgotten what it is. So I think a lot of writers will tell you that. So yeah, the music is great, but the ideas come when they come.
Yeah, I write as well. And I get my best ideas when I'm laying in bed sometimes. I got to jot it down.
Right. There are a lot of memes about that. You may even dream a particular scene. And I know I've gotten up and I'm like, that's how I complete this. How do I complete it? I forget it by the time my feet hit the floor. So it's unfortunate. My husband tells me I should probably try to begin talking into my phone and record these things, but I'm too hard-headed to do that.
Yeah. Now, and here's a fun thing too. And, you know, this is for all of us. If you were to write a story on your life, like pretty much an autobiography, if you were to do that, what would you call that bio? Like, what would it be called? Like the title of it?
It would be called The Rhythm It Takes to Dance.
The rhythm. Okay. I like that.
Hey, do you recognize that lyric? That's a lyric from a Parliament Funkadelic song. With the rhythm it takes to dance to what we have to live through. You can dance underwater and not get wet. And so The idea is that as a woman of color, as a woman, period, there are certain dances that you have to do through life in order to make it successfully. And it's complicated. The part you can dance underwater without getting wet. I think there are a lot of things that you deal with as a woman that men just don't see. It's not part of their day to day. And so that would be the title, because I have a lot of stories to tell about, being a mother and taking care of my parents, my dying parents at the same time. That's an interesting sandwich generation story. Raising 3 sons, being the only woman in the household, and so forth and so on. A lot of little vignettes that I've actually jotted down from time to time. And if I get the chance, I'll put them in the rhythm it takes to dance.
Now here's where it gets weird. All right, so Socrates, what would you think your autobiography would be called?
Oh God.
Because I already I thought about it earlier, and I already kind of know what mine's.
Yours would be called "I See Alligator People."
Yeah, no, it would not be that. It would not be that. You want me to go first while you still think about it? All right, I think mine will be Beers, Boobs, and Pro Wrestling, the story of Chase Rawlings. Because, on this podcast, we've been on the road so many times for pro wrestling. We've drank a lot of beer, and just, pro wrestling has led me to everything I have today. This podcast, just being able to talk to cool people, Kim, everybody else that's been on this show. So it will be like an epic journey laced with a lot of fun, crazy, out there moments, along with it. So
as we've talked about on the show, many of them.
Yes. And what about you, Cypro? What do you think?
Just off the top of my head, I think mine would be called Nothing. The Life of a Nihilist.
Nothing.
The Life of a Nihilist.
Jesus. And one thing I was noticing too is when I was talking about stuff with the 80s and the 90s and all that, you kind of see your heroes when you're a kid, go through certain stuff. And we were talking about before we went on air, of course, we're associated with pro wrestling. I'm not sure if you heard any of it, the whole thing that rocked WWE with Vince McMahon, stepping down as chairman and all that. And we're just kind of and he's supposed to be at 8:00, he's supposed to be opening WWE SmackDown, live in the ring. And we're just kind of dude, is that a good idea? Should you be doing that? And and it kind of led me to believe Mighty Morphin Power Rangers recently. If you've ever had that show, or if your kids ever watched it, the Red Ranger, he just recently got in trouble for frauding COVID money, him and a bunch of other people.
Oh, I'm so disappointed. I was a fan of the film.
Oh yeah. And
all my heroes are letting me down.
And they're coming up on their 30th anniversary. Netflix bought the rights to Power Rangers. So Netflix is going to be doing a new series of Power Rangers, and they want to have a reunion show and bring back all the originals. He's probably not going to be a part of it now, but
probably not.
Yeah, it's crazy they did that. And I had I was sitting there thinking, I'm like, could you imagine that? He's sitting there in front of the judge, and the judge is getting ready to lay a sentence down, and he just pulls the thing out of his pocket, and he's like, it's morphin time. And he just turns into the Ranger and starts fighting people in the courthouse. And then the next thing the bailiff security guy just pulls out a gun, pop, pop, and he just fucking just goes down. Imagine that. He just kind of morph himself out of, trouble or whatever. But yeah, I mean, I don't know what it is. Everybody's just so caught up in everything now. And I'm like, I don't understand. I just wake up and try to pay my bills. I'm not worried about trying to get into so many things. And, I have no idea. Now, of course, is there anything that you can think of, when you were growing up that, you followed something and you sat there later on in life, you're like, oh man, what happened to that person? I never knew that they were like that.
Well, I guess my disclaimer is I'm a Gen Xer. And one of the traits of Gen Xers is we don't have heroes. We were the original latchkey kids.
Yeah.
And while I remember Watergate, because my dad kept watching it and wouldn't, this is back in the time when you only have 3 stations and the UHF station, and there was no cable and all of that. So I remember it being on, but I don't really remember, it didn't really shape anything in my mind until until the 2016 election happened, and there became some similarities. And so that's when what happened, how did we get here became a whole issue for me.
Yeah.
In fact, it's not that my book is about politics, but there is, if you read through certain lines, there is that political message woven in there as well, because how can it not be? I don't know how we got where we are, except for the fact that we stopped being concerned about ourselves and we started being more concerned about how we compare to others.
Yeah.
And it's just like, not enough.
Yeah, be you to your truest form. And I mean, that's the thing. And I mean, like our show is very, it's either balls to the wall crazy, or it's a little bit, we have a guest on and we sometimes have a civilized conversation, kind of like, what we're doing now. But I mean, that's the thing. It's like, but either way, we're being us. Like, I come into all these really with kind of,
Jordan Peterson said it's useless to compare yourself to other people because you have so many idiosyncrasies.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
You can never fairly compare yourself to anybody.
Yeah. And I mean, that's the thing. Like I come into every single one of these episodes, with an open mind. I don't really plan a lot because I got so used to that. And I do every podcast live. Every single one I do live because I got so used to it with pro wrestling that it's the kind of thing that, I can sit there and talk out with Socrates as much as I want in the back, what's going to go on. And then the second we get in the ring, we forget everything. And it's like, at that point, we have thousands of people looking at us. And it's like, okay, now we need to call it on the fly. And that's the thing. And it's us just kind of being us in this show. I feel like so many people with a lot of podcasts, things are just so, it's defined of, what questions you're going to be asked, like everybody. And it's just kind of the same thing over and over. And me, I'm just kind of like, okay, I'm going to throw in different elements and, it's going to spark for, a lot cooler and a lot more authentic conversations than, what some other places would have, and it ends up being, fun. And, how exactly with books, how exactly are they doing? Like, of course they're available. Where all are they available?
Sure. So my ebook is available on Amazon through Kindle Unlimited. If you're a member, then you can download for free. And the paperback is available on Amazon and at barnesandnoble.com. Okay. So I indie published as an independent publisher, it's a slow crawl, but I think that with the early reviews, the reviews have been good because I think people appreciate reading something other than what they expect. And I think, if I was to compare my book with anything, it would probably be The Book Thief, which is narrated by Death. Oh, nice. But still has this really cool story about this little girl who's illiterate and learns to read and hoards books. So, in a very similar way, I have personified truth, and she takes us through important lessons. So my hope is that, as I grow my readership, that people will begin to kind of think a little bit differently about books. And I think that's the other thing too. We're not readers anymore. We'll listen, but we're not necessarily readers. So, hopefully it will inspire people to pick up the book, read through the pages. There's drama, there's mystery. There's a love story there, but there's more to it too. Yeah. Hopefully there's some humor too. I think it's kind of funny.
And speaking of that, we're going to get into another one of our Drunken Ramblings news articles, which are always our weird news articles. And I always try to theme one off of a guest that we have. And of course, you're a writer. So I just typed in weird news article writer. This is what came up. So, and, we were sitting there talking a little bit about like what's going on and all that. Of course, we're in this era where like we have Zoom, like, this whole podcast was a COVID baby. There wasn't much going on in COVID. We had the idea of the podcast and we're like, screw it. Let's just go ahead and start the show and just go with it in June of 2020. So, Zoom has set up, it's a great platform.
It was a COVID baby, as opposed to a baby born with COVID.
And, right. So Zoom has done so many, like you hear people all the time getting in trouble. And I'm like, I don't know how people don't know that they're live on Zoom, like, and do weird things. And this is one of them. And, I know your book said it had a little bit of like political stuff. So you might've heard about this. Like, I don't know how long ago this was, but pretty much the title was New York writer fired after he was caught masturbating on Zoom call with colleagues. And it said, have you heard about that?
Oh, yes.
And it said Jeffrey Toobin, a veteran writer, had been suspended last month after news broke that he exposed his genitals on a work-related video. Like how, like, I don't understand. And it said he was fired from his staff writing job, The New Yorker, after he was caught masturbating during a Zoom call with colleagues who were preparing for the coverage of the 2020 election. And I don't understand. Like, I mean, that's the thing. Like we just a couple of months ago, we had a big, huge, we had 30 former guests come back. We had our 100th episode. It was a big milestone episode. We had 30 former guests come back. We played a series of our games, and we had so many people in the room, like before, after, during, whatever. You clearly hear everything that's going on, like what's going on. So I don't understand.
When you gotta go, you gotta go.
Yeah, I don't understand what's going through this guy's mind. Or there's been teachers who have been caught, like going to go teach their class and they're wearing just their bra or something like that. I'm like, you're on Zoom, like all of your students are there. Like I don't
think
understand.
People are still getting used to the whole, being on camera all the time. It's still relatively new.
Yeah, I think that's what it is, because we still have a lot of guests every so often that don't know how to get logged in. When we first started, we did Skype, and Skype unfortunately didn't have the capabilities of actually going live onto YouTube, Facebook, all that. So we switched over to Zoom, but a lot of people just can't get it configured, and I'm trying to figure out a way, because since Insecurity is sensitive to the light, where I can log in on my phone under a different username so the phone can face him, but he'll have a window as well. So, we're improvising the best way we can with, the little to no budget we have for the podcast. And what I'm going to do real quick.
Real quick, I just had a question.
Yeah.
I started writing in high school. This is the way to get things out. When did you start seriously writing? Was it when you were younger, or something you started, when you were older?
I started writing when I was in middle school. And I think it was more the ramblings of an angsty teen girl than anything else, but I'd write short stories, I'd journal. I never published any of it. But when I got to college, it was around my second year in college was when I started writing for the college newspaper, and I really loved it. It wasn't so much the reporting part of it, but it was putting the story together and putting together the pieces that I had. And it was just a creative space, which was interesting because I didn't go to school to be a writer. I went to school with the intention of becoming a doctor. Didn't happen because I fell in love with the writing, and I'm glad I did.
Awesome. And I mean, that's the thing, like, I'm not a writer, so I don't know a lot about writing and all that. And I give you all the credit in the world. Same thing with Socrates. Cause like I'd be one of those ones that I would sit there, and especially in school, if we had to write a story, I would sit there and spend more time thinking about what I wanted to write. And I've had writers tell me before, just write, write stuff. And then once you have stuff written, just kind of piece it, put it together from there. Because we've had a couple of artists on the show, a couple of authors on the show, and one of our authors were like, that's what I did. I wrote ideas that I had over the years, and I just went through, put it all together, and revised a lot of that. So, definitely kudos, a lot of credit for that, because I would never be able to do something like that. I mean, I can go out, perform in front of a live crowd, get the hell beaten out of me for like 35 minutes and not think anything about it. But when it comes time to doing something like that, I'm just kind of like, I don't know what to do.
Well, you talk about just sitting down and writing. That's how Masked Intent was born. I was teaching middle school, and I was having a tough time getting my 8th graders to write. And so I said, okay, let's write together. I'm going to sit down at my desk and I'm going to start writing. And I started writing the love story part of this. This was 10 years ago. So, it really was just kind of an idea. But before I knew it, I had 300 pages ready to go. And the students were asking me, Miss Greer, can you read this? And I'm like, no, I don't think this is safe for 8th graders.
Yeah.
But I did find some passages that didn't survive, actually. I don't know what I'll do with them. And they encouraged me. And they started writing. And that's kind of how I decided, let me go ahead and do this thing. So it really is just, you got to sit down and do it. If you have a notion to write, you need to write. And you need to write something every day.
Now, are you still teaching? Do you still teach?
No, I have a day job. I work in marketing, and which involves a little bit of writing, but it's more business development than anything else. But I write as much as I can. I take my laptop, and at lunchtime I write. I jot down ideas. At night I write. So it really is about write every single solitary day if you want to be published.
And when you were a teacher, and of course you don't need to name names, but was there ever a student that you had that you just hated? Like you just hated? Without question, she's just like, yep. Like you just sat there and you're like, I wish this student would just leave. I don't care. I will give them all A's. I don't care. I just need them gone.
Yes. Yes. My last year of teaching, I had a couple that way who just were not interested in learning, but they were interested in being clowns. They were interested in being heard, seen, and disruptive. And so, yeah, it became a challenge because I'm a very patient person. And I guess, you're not, as a teacher, you're not supposed to say, I don't like this kid, but, I have no qualms in saying, yeah, no.
I think every teacher, and I'm sure I've had my share of teachers that hated me, and like some of the crew that I ran with, and like we were always sent out in the hall to go sit or whatever. And
me in high school.
Oh God, like you sit there, you think back, you're like, we were a bunch of jerks, like we were a bunch of pricks when we were in school, and it is what it is. But you know what, they learn as time goes on, and even with you showing them stuff, if they learned one thing that helped carry them along, then then you did your job, and that's the best part. And what we're going to do real quick is we're going to get into our game segment. We do 2 games on the show. Segment's called Ode to Humanity. So it's things get a little weird once we start, the game. One of them is called Incoherent. So Incoherent, pretty much what I'm going to do is I'm going to show 3 cards on the screen, one after another, and they're going to be in drunken text. So you need to try to sound out the card to figure out what it says. And there's a few hints on the back, and let me just get those ready. And then I'll go ahead and pull those up onto the screen for you and see if you can figure out what they say. And of course, everybody watching at home, these are the games that we used during the Happy Hour Pod Rumble, which is how people got eliminated from that very Rumble. So this is the first one right here. Can you see that? Okay, I'll make a full screen as well. So what do you think that says?
I'd slag Tay. I'd slag Tay. I have no clue.
One of the hints is you can't skip it. So people skip this every so often.
Okay. Wow. It's like I'm reading another language. It is like I'm reading another language.
Put it this way, and I'll give you a hint that's not on the card. It has a lot to do with the gym. So think about the gym and something that people skip a lot of times at the gym.
Shower?
Socrates said he might know what it is. So here, I'll let you look at it. Oh, here, turn it around. There you go.
It's leg day.
Yeah, it's leg day. So a lot of people skip it's leg day. So yeah. So what happens is a lot of people, I always say the best way to do it. And my wife, she can get these like this. And my brain's mush. I've had 5 concussions in pro wrestling. I'm like, I'm sure I have CTE. Like I cannot process this with my jello brain at all. And she's just bam, 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 bam. And she told me what she does is she like sounds it out to herself really fast. And then like a lot of times when you say it really fast, you kind of figure it out. So let's see how you do on this one. So we're going to go ahead and pull up this one, and let's see if you can figure out what this one says. So there's that one right there. And once this, I'm not sure if you see the stuff at the top, but once that goes away, I'll make a full screen. There we go. All right. What do you think that one says? Now this is a quote for the most part.
Harder than it sounds.
The Psycho, I'll let you hold on to that. So
you know what? Maybe I should have had a drink before I came on. Because
well, it's funny because I was telling Socrates it's weird because I was in such of a rush. I could not pick up any beer. We do like a featured beer every week. I was in such a rush. I didn't have time. It was either stop, get beer, potentially run late, or come back and start the podcast immediately at like, we normally come in early for like our YouTube fans sometimes. And I was like, all right, well, this is the dry episode, but I did take like a couple of shots of this 10 high whiskey before we
take one for me because I need some help here.
Why are you so obsessed with me?
Yeah, so Socrates is 2 for 2. So the hints were, I don't know what carry means. Like one of the hints was carry, and then it says when they say I love you and y'all literally met last month, and it's why are you so obsessed with me? So yeah, so all right, so Psycho, like you went all the way to like the
final
end.
three.
Yeah, you were the final three. Yeah. What we did, Kim, is for our 100th episode, we had all of our guests come back, and I'm not sure how familiar you are with pro wrestling, but every year they have the Royal Rumble, which they have 30 guys, they get eliminated, and I was like, all right, well, I want to have a wrestling theme thing, and we played this game. And pretty much that was the way people got eliminated, quote unquote, eliminated, is if they couldn't answer the card, you got like one rebuttal. If you couldn't get it, you could, survive by using that. But that's how people got eliminated. And it was just insane the whole time.
Johnny, good luck. I'm coming for you next year, brother. It ain't over.
All right. So we're going to do one more. So let me get that ready, and I'll get that up one here in 1 second for you. So there's that. And then, so there's that. What do you think this is? So let me get that on here, and then this will go to full screen once that junk pops away. All right. So there's that. What do you think that says?
Curdle hive crisis. Curdle hive.
You got the last word, which is crisis. Crisis is the last word. So one of the hints is 25 years instead of 50 years. It's 25 years. And it says, when you wake up in a pool of sweat, panic that you're not going to make the Forbes 30 under 30. So
quarter.
Oh, you're close. You're close.
Quarter life crisis.
Yes. No, it is quarter life crisis. What the next hint was going to be, some people have these mid and then crisis, and that would have been it. So yeah, that's incoherent. Thank you for taking part in incoherent. And now what we're going to do is, I don't know if you've ever heard of it, but we have a game that we play with guests called Cards Against Humanity. Have you ever? Of course,
I've heard of Cards Against Humanity. Yes.
So Cards Against Humanity. Of course, we can't have you have your cards on this side. So we like to play Cards Against Humanity Roulette. So what we do is we'll read off the face card, and then we'll give you a number between 1 and 5 to randomly answer that card. And if you don't like your answer, you can choose one more after that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read off the first one. The first one today, which actually kind of makes sense. I didn't know you were a teacher, but this one came out, out of the box. All classes today are canceled due to blank. So 1 through 5, what do you think is a lucky number that you think could answer that card?
4.
4. All right. So we're going to go with 4. All right. So all classes are canceled due to pizza in the morning, pizza in the evening, and pizza at supper time. Of course, when pizza's on a bagel, you can have pizza anytime. I remember that commercial like the back of my hand.
I'm gonna order a pizza.
Right.
So, Kim, are you satisfied with that answer, or do you want to rebuttal and choose another one?
I'd like to rebuttal. How about, let's go with 3.
3. All right. So 3. All right. So all classes are canceled due to a bunch of idiots playing a card game instead of interacting like normal humans.
Yeah.
And then some of the other ones that you could have chose were Freeing Willy, a squadron of moles wearing aviator goggles, and Bosnian chicken farmers. So those were some of the other ones. And now we're going to do another round. So this is the next one. So this one is, the Department of Psychology is looking for paid research volunteers. Are you 18 and 20, between the ages of 18 to 25, and suffering from blank? So what do you think? 1 through 5.
Let's go with 1.
1. All right. So we're going to go with 1. So the Department of Psychology is looking for paid research volunteers. Are you between the ages of 18 and 25 and suffering from a crazy little thing called love? Now, would you like to rebuttal?
Absolutely. Let's try 3.
3. All right. So 3. All right. So there's that one. I can kind of agree with this one. The Department of Psychology is looking for paid research volunteers. Are you between the ages of 18 and 25 and suffering from liking big butts and not being able to lie about it?
There you go. That's the one.
am. Well, I was when I was 18,
Yeah.
25.
And then see, she like somehow mapped herself around the really bad ones because the other ones were Kurt Cobain's death, anal fissures like you wouldn't believe, and some really fucked up shit. Some of the other ones. So thank you for taking part in our Ode to Humanity segment. And Kim, when now with writing, like, of course you have your book, you have the sequel coming out. Do you have any other, subjects that you kind of want to, like, do you have like any suspense or like any, like maybe like kind of like horror type, books like on your mind of that you would want to do?
I'm considering a thriller. I have a character that I've written, actually, a minor character in Masked Intent that I like to play around with a little bit. And I've got some really kind of mysterious things floating around in my mind about his life, and it feels like a thriller to me, or mystery sort of. So that's in the works somewhere down the road.
And now I can see now she's like, I want to work on a thriller, and it's about that 8th grader that she did not, that student that she hated. And she's just kind of like, yes, this is it. It all just opens up one day in Miss Greer's classroom, and there he was sitting at his desk, or there she was sitting at her desk, and then next thing we know, oh my God, who did it? Who did it? It's a whole who done it coming to age. Which student did it? Clue.
You might have a point. That might be the beginnings of a plot. But Ray, I've got a question for you.
Yeah.
Can you remind me of your wrestler name? I forgot what you said it was.
It's Chase Rawlings.
Chase what?
Chase Rawlings, like the baseball.
Chase Rawlings.
Rawlings. Yeah. So Chase Rawlings.
Got it. Okay. Just curious.
Yeah. So it's funny because when I started off in the wrestling business, you're always given a gimmick, and sometimes the gimmicks are gimmicks you don't like. And originally, like, that wasn't my original name. Like, I came in and we went into a room and we sat down, and they're like, all right, look, here's how it's gonna work. You guys are evil villains. We're like, what? Yeah, you guys are evil villains. You're gonna be Dr. X. You're going to be Mr. E Machine. And then they point at me and they're like, you're going to be Gold Thumb. And I'm like, what? And they're like, you're the Legion of Ungood. And we're like, okay. And all of you, 2 of you, except for you, are all wearing masks. And I'm like, all right. And we walked out of the room and we're like, we absolutely hate this. And it was funny because we started off as bad guys, and the gimmick, like, we were such bad, evil villains that we would do matches where, like, let's say we had a tag match against 2 female wrestlers named Jawbreakers, and I went to whip them off the ropes, and I went to clothesline them. And mind you, they're small. They're probably about your size, and like, I'm my size. And I clothesline them and I fell down. Like, and that's how much of bad, weak, evil villains we were. And it ended up just kind of organically becoming like a comedy thing. And the fans fell in love with it, and it ended up becoming one of the bigger things in the company. We were the most popular tag team they had ever had, and we never won the tag belts. We never, ever won the tag belts. But then it came to the point that 2 years later, they were like, all right, we're going to break you guys up. So they break us up. I turn into the bad guy. I take the mask off. And then it was the whole thing of, I'm faced with, they're like, well, what are we going to call you now? And originally it was going to be Raymond G. Thumb. That's what my name was going to be. And I was just kind of like, I'm not sure about that. And I was sitting there thinking, and then I was like, I just sat there and I looked, and I'm like, well, who am I? And I'm like, all right, well, my last name is Chase. My mom's maiden name is Rawlings. I am Chase Rawlings. That's who I am as a person. And that's how that was born. I rode with that ever since. So yeah,
very cool. I like the idea that maybe that book about that bad 8th grader, maybe his name is Chase. Maybe. What do you think?
But if you do it, it's Chase, not with an S, but with a C. That throws so many people off. My wife married into that we'll get stuff in the mail all the time, and I'll say Chase, and I'll be Chase instead of that Chace. But her maiden name was Guminick, so she has no arguments about that, because no one could spell Guminick to save their lives. So, but
I was just thinking, if I would have done your whole deal and used, my mom's maiden maiden name.
Yeah,
My
yeah.
last name.
Oh God.
My giving name would have been Coffee with Tomsky. I don't think that would have gone over too well. I think Insecurity is better.
What about you, Kim? If you were to use your mom's maiden name and your name as a wrestling name, what would it be?
Well, her maiden name was Porter. Porter. Yeah. I mean, what are you going to do with that? Porterhouse.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a steak. That's not sexy though. Yeah. I don't know that we can make a good wrestler name.
Yeah. And I mean,
I really don't.
It's funny because I would tell people what my wrestling name was, and they would so many times would go, "That sounds like a porn star name," and I'm like, "That's not my intention. Like that's not like that's what like." And I'm like, you know what? Whatever. Let's just go with it. But no, Kim, what all do you have coming up? Do you have any book signings coming up? And actually, any book signings you do, have you had any weird experiences at any of your book signings?
I have not had a book signing yet. I am hoping to do a book tour this fall.
Okay.
So, but no, I've read about a lot of weird experiences with people who've been cyber stalked by others. I know of an instance of a woman who will not do book signings anymore because there's been someone who identified her on tour and is at every single stop she makes. And so, and because, we as indie authors don't necessarily have security around us, she's having to take her family with her. And so she's just decided it's not worth it, which is quite sad. You shouldn't have to do that, but such is the life of living in social media and trying to connect with people. It's a necessary evil, but it can be very difficult to navigate in real life.
You have no idea. And of course, my old Facebook profile, I got locked out of it because my email expired. But before I lost that profile and started the one that I have now about a year or so ago, you will be shocked how many fans not only found me on Facebook and friended me. And like, I've been retired for a good while. I did a Hall of Fame show probably about 3 years ago. So I've been retired for a good while and fans still remember and they'll find me. But not only do they friend me, but they'll also friend my wife, who they have never met in their entire life. And my wife will be like, "Do you know this person?" I'll be like, "Yeah, it's one of the wrestling fans or whatever." And she's like, "Should I accept it?" And I'm like, I mean, it's up to you. Like, I mean, but it's weird, and I mean, everybody has those weird experiences.
Of me at Dave Mustaine book signing.
Yeah.
It was all good.
And the story that I told not too long ago, where I did the Hall of Fame show, and I had my shirt on before I came out. Like, it was hot in the back, so I'm kind of sweating a little bit. Poured a whole bottle of water over my head, walked out, my shirt soaked, took my shirt off, and I threw it out of the ring, and it landed right at the bottom of the guardrail. So someone grabbed it and pulled it. And after the match, I'm in the crowd, like, greeting everybody, signing autographs and all that. And the guy comes up wearing my shirt soaked with water and sweat. And he was like, "Hey, I grabbed your shirt. Can you sign this for me?" And I'm like, "It's a black shirt and I have a black Sharpie. But also that is disgusting. Why are you wearing it? Take that off. Like, stop it." But yeah. So your book tour is coming up. Do you know exactly what, where all you're going to be? Is it going to be more local, or are you kind of trying to do it nationwide? Or
no, I'm trying to stay more local. So I'm in the DMV also. I am in Northern Virginia. And so I'm looking here and trying to iron down dates. I did think of something. You asked about a weird experience, and while it hasn't been a weird experience in real life, and the perils of social media, you open up your text messages and you see, weirdness. You write really well. Can we go on a date? No, sorry, stay out of my DMs.
Yeah.
And I'm cleaning it up for the purposes of this show, but it's, it's to the point I'm here trying to sell books. I'm not trying to hook up. That's not the thing. Yeah. So I wonder though, do you think men go through that too? Do you think women cyber stalk?
Well, I mean, put it this way: you don't need to clean up anything on this show because this show is mature audiences.
Yeah, we've more receptive to it.
We've cleaned it up a little bit out of respect to you, because I know you're a writer, all that. Like, if you see some of our other episodes, you would sit there and be like, "What did I just
the ones I'm on.
sit through?" But no, I mean, that's the thing. Like, I a lot of times with guests, I'm just kind of like, "Hey, I want to make sure their book gets promoted, so we'll keep it a little bit more, clean, professional, all that stuff." But yeah, I mean, I've had some, I haven't had anything like that. especially when I was wrestling. I was single. Unfortunately, I didn't have anything like that.
I
actually
did have a girl from Chambers, North PA. They kept trying to message me on, because it was MySpace still back then.
Oh yeah,
and like, not to be rude or anything, but she wasn't somebody I was interested in.
Yeah. You have the right to not be interested in somebody.
Talk to me. I'm like, she's not getting the point at all. She's really not getting the point.
And still to this day, I
was trying to be nice to her because it's a fan. She's a fan.
Speaking of which, there's a guy, I'm not going to name names, but anybody watching at home or listening to this in the wrestling community knows exactly who I'm talking about. This fan, he messages me all the time, and he also messages my wife. And like a lot of times, like he'll sit there and tell my wife how he's depressed and like, how much his sex life sucks or whatever and all that.
Initials are JH, are they?
Yes, they are. And I'll sit there and I'll be like, you do realize that you're telling this stuff to a wrestler's wife. Right, so there was one night I told my wife she wanted to do it. I was like, you need to work him. And she's like, what do you mean? I'm like, you need to like work him. Like you need to tell him that like I beat you. And like, because I think like he has a crush on my wife. And I was like, you need to like just work him and just be like, oh, I want to. And she's like, no, I'm not going to do this. She's like so sweet. She's like, no, I'm not going to do that. But he's very infamous for messaging and going, hi. And I'll be like, hi. And he'll be like, what's up? And I'll be like, what's up? And then that's it. And then a couple months later, hi, how are you? I'm good. How are you? Nothing. And I'm just kind of like, and he does it to my wife too, aside from when I'm like, what the, we have this kid. His name is BW, if you might know who I'm talking about. He messages all the time, and he's not all there, but he messages all the time saying how his mother owes him like $30,000 and how Morgus the Maniac's going to help him get it. And he always messages me and Derek Frazier. So like he messages us all and like this just crazy convoluted stuff. And I'm just sitting here reading this stuff. And I'm like, am I really reading it?
Like busting through his mom's house in his gimmick.
I don't like, oh! And I'm like, wait a minute. And like, I know he's not, so what I did is I'm just kind of like, hey man, I don't think I can help you. So what I started doing is I started pawning him off on other wrestlers. So I'd be like, I can't help you, but Vinny Versace can. And like there's one of the guys, he's a booker, he's a manager also, and he used to be considered pizza boy. Like he was the personal pizza boy to one of the wrestlers. And then they played off that his pizza shop burned down. He ended up inheriting his family's fortune and he became Vinny Versace. So, I told the kid, I was like, look, Vinny Versace has that pizza empire money. He might have the money to help you, get that money back from your mom and recruit Morgus the Maniac and all that. And like, literally, like he messaged me the other day and he's like, I hate you. And he's like, but I can't help but to read all this. And it's just, it's true. Like, it's just that weird stuff. And sometimes you feel bad, but sometimes you're just kind of like, what is happening? Like, I don't understand what's happening right now. So, but yeah. So, but Kim, what we're going to do is we're going to let you go ahead and get ready to get out of here. We appreciate you being on the show. I hope you had a great time.
Thank you, Ray. Of course,
we're going to be right back here again on YouTube Live next Friday at 8 p.m. Our featured guest is Nade Nasty, so make sure you look out for that. That's going to probably be crazy. And I think also comedian Tommy Simbazo, who actually, shout out to Tommy Simbazo, good friend of the show, local comedian. His Hulu special will be coming out soon. He just hosted the 98 Rock morning show this morning. He was a fill-in for that and he absolutely killed it. So shout out to Tommy. I think Tommy might be joining us next week as well as a special guest co-host, so make sure you look out for that. And check out www.thehhpod.com and make sure you click subscribe down at the bottom of the screen. And we're going to go ahead and wrap up here on YouTube Live. And Kim, would you be able to hang out 1 minute when we're all done?
Sure.
Awesome.
Absolutely.
So once again, thank you for tuning into the Happy Hour podcast. This is going to conclude our YouTube Live episode. We will see you guys next week. All right. End on that. And then end on, no.